In the summer of 1518, the streets of Strasbourg, now part of modern-day France, transformed into a deadly dance floor. This mysterious and fatal event, known as the Dancing Plague of 1518, saw people dancing uncontrollably for days on end. The bizarre outbreak began with a woman named Frau Trophia, who started dancing erratically in the town square for no apparent reason. As days passed, more and more people joined her, turning the spectacle into a dangerous epidemic. The intensity of the dancing was so extreme that many dancers collapsed from exhaustion, suffered heart attacks, or even died due to the physical strain. Despite the tragic outcomes, the dancing persisted for weeks until the authorities finally managed to intervene and halt the madness. The Dancing Plague of 1518 remains one of history's most enigmatic and intriguing events. Various theories have been proposed to explain the outbreak, but the true cause remains unknown. Some speculate it was mass hysteria, while others suggest it was triggered by a toxic fungus or a virus. Regardless of the cause, this event is a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of human behavior. The early 16th century was a period of significant change and turmoil in Europe. The continent was still recovering from the Black Death's devastation, which had claimed millions of lives in the 14th century. The Renaissance was flourishing, introducing new ideas that challenged traditional ways of thinking. The Holy Roman Empire, which included much of present-day Germany, was a complex patchwork of independent states and territories, each with its own laws and customs. Dancing mania, or St. Vitus dance, was not a new phenomenon in Europe. Several outbreaks had occurred in previous centuries, the earliest recorded in the 1370s in the Rhineland region of Germany. During these outbreaks, people danced uncontrollably for hours or days, often until they collapsed from exhaustion or died. Historians have proposed various theories to explain these outbreaks. Some believe they were forms of mass hysteria triggered by stress and anxiety, while others suggest they were reactions to the social and economic upheaval of the time. Another theory is that these outbreaks were manifestations of religious ecstasy or responses to hallucinogenic substances. The Strasbourg Dancing Plague of 1518 is the most famous and deadly of these outbreaks. It began in July when Frau Trophia started dancing in the streets. Within a month, hundreds had joined her, and the dancing spread throughout the city. Many dancers collapsed from exhaustion or died from heart attacks or strokes. Despite numerous theories, the cause of the dancing mania remains uncertain. It is one of the most puzzling phenomena in European history. In the summer of 1518, a strange affliction took hold of Strasbourg. It began when Frau Trophia stepped outside her home and started dancing uncontrollably. Her erratic movements continued for hours, and when she finally collapsed from exhaustion, it became evident that something was terribly wrong. Soon, others in the city began to exhibit the same behavior, and hundreds were soon caught up in the bizarre and deadly dance. The epidemic quickly spread, and the authorities realized they had a serious problem. Musicians were brought in to try to calm the dancers, but their efforts were in vain. The dancers' movements became increasingly frenzied and erratic. As the days turned into weeks, people began to collapse from exhaustion, with some dying from heart attacks and strokes. By September, it is estimated that as many as 400 people had been affected, with around 100 deaths. The authorities were baffled. Some thought it was the result of a curse or demonic possession, while others believed it was a contagious disease. Eventually, the city council built a stage in the town square, encouraging the dancers to continue in a more controlled environment. Remarkably, this seemed to work, and the number of dancers began to dwindle. By the end of the month, the dancing plague had ended. At the time, various theories were proposed to explain the phenomenon. Physicians believed the dancers suffered from overheated blood and prescribed bleeding, which only worsened the condition. Others thought the dancers were possessed by demons and recommended exorcism. Some believed the plague was divine punishment for sins and called for repentance. In modern times, scholars have suggested several explanations for the dancing plague of 1518. One theory is that the dancers suffered from ergotism, a disease caused by consuming bread contaminated with ergot, a psychotropic mold that can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and frenzy. Another theory is that the outbreak was a form of mass hysteria or mass psychogenic illness, triggered by psychological stress due to famine, war, and disease. Some scholars suggest it was a form of protest against the social and political conditions of the time, with the dancers expressing defiance through their movements. Others point to religious fervor as a possible cause. The dancing plague of 1518 had immediate consequences for Strasbourg. The epidemic caused widespread panic and hysteria, with an estimated death toll of around 400 people. Many died from exhaustion, heart attacks, or strokes, while others starved because they were too busy dancing to eat or work. Historical records indicate that the city council initially tried to rationalize the behavior as a result of the hot and humid summer, but later resorted to organizing processions and penance ceremonies to appease God. The dancing plague of 1518 remains a topic of much study and speculation by historians and scholars. It is often cited as an example of mass hysteria and irrational human behavior, comparable to events like the Salem witch trials and the ergot poisoning epidemic in medieval Europe. Historian John Waller has suggested that the epidemic may have been caused by the ingestion of LSD-like substances found in rye crops, while others have proposed syphilis or other diseases as potential causes. However, no conclusive evidence supports any of these theories. The dancing plague of 1518 has also captured the public imagination, inspiring numerous articles, books, and documentaries.